definitely have to talk about, and that type of safety with source from out of time is really what every human mind is looking for, and not just is looking for, should look for, should seek, and should find and be certain about it, because in the teaching or understanding that there cannot be any other possibility than being safe and completely safe in him. That means also in that, as we were teaching it, isn't it, in the contact with Christ, in that recognition of who you are, who we are as one, in one creation, in perfect creation, that is our communication and contact with Christ. And this is really where we are coming from, because this starts out with a conscious contact with God. And what other conscious contact with God would we have than what is called prayer? And so today I would like to look a little bit of certain ideas that have been given us when the textbook, the lessons, and the teacher's manual were already scribed and were already in process of publishing. It was already published, the course, when there came in what is called an extension of the principles of A Course in Miracles. And this extension, or this in the supplements of the course, there was given the message of the psychotherapy, but also then as a next compilation, the Song of Prayer. And in the Song of Prayer, he's giving us very practical and very reasonable argument and recognitions about prayer, about forgiveness, and about healing. And in that first section, in that first part about prayer, we get basically another download after so many perspectives within the text and within the whole mind training, doing a lesson is actually being in prayer and receiving the benefit of prayer. So in this extension of the principles and of the teaching as given in the textbook of A Course in Miracles, the Song of Prayer, we are reminded once more about what true prayer is, what other ideas of prayer we experience for ourselves, and how we still might limit our experience in that if we are praying and asking for something of which literally God doesn't know, and that cannot really be given, because all that we can truly pray for and be given is the truth. And the truth has to be singular, it has to be reality, it has to be completely creative. And that doesn't take anything away of limited forms of prayers, but it lets us know that to ask for something and to ask out of need is really just being on the way and learning, having that as part of a personal learning what still needs to be undone, learning that everything and all power is already given us, we the sons of God. And therefore, we don't need to pray for anything else than for the entire power of the will of God. Let me put it like this. And to pray that we find that strength in ourselves, that and the clarity also that we can distinguish between limited forms literally put out there as if God would be, I always say, a wish fulfilling machine. and and the difference of really feeling the grace of God in a union within our own mind, with everyone, with all the universe, or with a particular person in which we are active in forgiveness and healing. And so we have here a couple of subsections in this first part about prayer, which I would like to share with you. And those things were transcribed or scribed mostly nine, before 1978 or beginning of 1978. So I'm not completely clear about in which, but it was between 1975 and 1978. And so those subsections are also became in the later versions or in the later editions of the FIP version of the course, part of the publication of the Foundation for Inner Peace, which I will use here as in order to share this wonderful teaching coming from Jesus Christ himself. And I will not go into all parts of it, but will pick out those which touch me the most. And so after the true prayer, he gives us a perspective of how that looks like in the process of using prayer for transformation. And he calls it the ladder of prayer and describes there 4 levels. And then from the ladder of prayer, it is praying for others, praying with others. And I think it was the end of the letter, was the letter's end exactly, was the last subsection. But if we look at a letter, right, and there are rungs of the letter. So he describes here 4 levels, or you could say 4 rundles of that letter, until we come to a clear understanding of what true prayer is, and that we are only capable of expressing, feeling, experimenting, teaching, and demonstrating for ourselves true prayer. And so, of course, the first level will always be to look and admit there is a problem and there's something that is not of God, or there's something that has been made by one's own self-made thought system called the ego's thought system, and that there is a need for the relief, there's a asking for the relief, and it has to be, let's say, that change that we are asking for, a changed perception, a changed experience about everyone and everything we see in the world. And so those are the actions of admitting the problem, but then also already choosing anew and taking a decision for the alternative, taking the decision for the miracle, for the healing experience, for in that communication and utilizing prayer, literally being or remembering again to be part of his mind. And of course, those are also the first lessons, no question about that. Now, if I'm going to look further, then he describes within the third subsection, the praying for others, then this second level in which we are directed and indicated that it is completely necessary to take responsibility. So that taking responsibility will always only go back to the me, that I'm the one in need of prayer, I'm the one in need of the solution, I'm the one in need of healing. And so it starts with uh, taking responsibility for the problem itself and how it has been set and projected within the dream. So that means we learn, and we have to learn to put the cause where it is, and that means within ourselves. I am the cause of how I experience myself. And if there's an experience of an expression of separation from source of any form of fear, so that needs to be admitted. And once we do admit that, that is an action of an expression of responsibility. Now we will have a few paragraphs in that section for sure, because it's great. And then comes praying with others. Once we have really noticed that praying for others only works if that other is really identified and seen as ourselves. In truth, we do not pray for anybody else, but for ourselves. Right? You only pray for yourself. I only pray for myself. But we go together. We are never alone. You and me, you and Christ go together. And that might become an experience for a moment of praying with others, praying with your loved ones, praying with um, your brothers, your family, whoever. But also, right there, there's something really important to learn, because that with someone again directs us towards a self recognition, a necessity to see that that other is myself. And we are joining now in a true purpose. And in that true purpose, we do receive the gift of the light of heaven. And so here comes the description of that third level or third rundle of the letter, and that is that sharing of the one direction that is given us home. Christ will only invite us to remember that we are home, that we are perfect, that we are whole, that we are as God created us. And you should really not stop, even if the lessons stop in in whatever time period. Just keep on remembering that you're not a body, you're free, you are as God created you. Because that freedom is not the freedom of some concepts as they are described in the world, as you can hear now. Oh, you're supposed to wear a face mask while they are taking away my freedom. This is not the freedom we are talking about. This is this ideas of freedom within the dream is really just a joke. So you better align yourself with true freedom, as it is really offered to you, to me, to all of us, in a self-recognition who we are in truth. I'm free is a statement of I know who I am, and therefore I know who you are, and therefore I know what the entire universe is. I know my true identity. I am the Holy Son of God. That is the declaration we all have to make. And so when the letter ends, it comes to a fourth level, a fourth rundle of the letter, and that is this completion of the self-recognition in our coming together, in prayer, in experiencing the light of heaven. And so also a completion in integration. We do go literally into our emotions, into our feelings, in order to experience the solution. We do not teach it conceptually, teach over it, but we go into it. We have a personal, profound experience of the non-significance and nothingness of fear thoughts, or any thought that represents the denial of God. And so these actions are actions of transforming our minds. This I call that conversion. The master teacher also called this conversion of thoughts in your mind. And we are arriving in that conversion to an experience that is not of this world. It is a light experience, as we call it. It is experiencing the love of God, the peace of God, because there is no love but God's. There is no other peace than the peace of God. And so we cannot go without each other. I cannot go without you because you are part of me. That's an expression that Jesus gives us in that subsection, but it is also a recognition that we should have, especially when there are problems coming up, when there are grievances, when there are attack thoughts entering into the mind of the human consciousness. Then remember that you cannot go home alone, and that your next one with whom you seemingly have that problem is part of you, and you're never you're never without that other, because you're never without yourself. You cannot cut yourself off. You're always yourself. You cannot cut yourself off from yourself, I wanted to say, right? You're always yourself. So the conversion shows us how that little self becomes the true self. Well, in the introduction to this song of prayer, this wonderful extension to the principles of A Course in Miracles, this supplemental download given us from out of time by Jesus Christ, has also a really wonderful introduction, which I would like to share with you, and that is with your permission, and also with the blessings, let's say, with the blessings um, from anyone who feels very close to this message. So the introduction in the Song of Prayer, in that supplement, uh, Jesus tells us that prayer is the greatest gift with which God blessed his Son at his creation. And it was then what it is to become. What is it? The single voice, creator and creation share. The single voice, creator and creation share. The song the Son sings to the Father. Isn't it beautifully poetically expressed? There is an extension of thought that you, as God's Son, literally sing, maybe without any tone, and, ultimately soundless, but you're singing it to the Father, who returns the thanks it offers him unto the Son, and endless the harmony, and endless too the joyous concord of the love they give forever to each other. And in this, creation is extended. God gives thanks to his extension in his Son, and his Son gives thanks for his creation in the song of his creating in his Father's name. And the love they share is what all prayer will be throughout eternity when time is done. When is time done? Tell me. Say now, here and now. Time can only be done here and now. And for such it was before time seemed to be. Now, to you who are in time, and he speaks here to every human being who imagines to live still in a body, or determines his existence by his observation as a body, or how to proceed in a body. That is being in time, or believing to exist and be in time. So he says, to you who are in time, a little while, prayer takes the form that best will suit your need. It takes a form. It is just a form, right? Once we are in the experience of what we are praying for that being shown the will of God, as I said at the very beginning, there is a being in heaven, a being whole. Of course, at your source, where you are at home, there's no need for prayer anymore. So, but as long as you are here, prayer takes the form that best will suit your need. So it becomes also a looking at what is my need, what are my needs. But the answer is very clear and very cleanly offered. He says, you have but one. There's just one, basically one need that you have. You just want to be home. You just want to wake up from the dream. You just want an experience of healing in its entirety that literally shows you who you are beyond time and space. So what God created one must recognize its oneness and rejoice that what illusions seem to separate is one forever in the mind of God, one forever. And prayer now must be the means, see, medium, means, the means by which God's Son leaves separate goals and separate interests by. It leaves it by and turns in holy gladness to the truth of union in his Father and himself. That is the goal. If we are using prayer, and everybody uses prayer, the master teacher would always say, a human being is a praying animal. And it is true. And maybe it is already said many thousands years before we are using this metaphor. The human consciousness is a praying animal. You are asking for 1,000 things until you recognize that you already have everything. And then at the very end of that line, you're asking for revelation. You're asking for the light of God. And something happens. Something is an implosion occurs in the consciousness. Something crumbles down to its nothingness and reveals and opens up the lotus flower, right? Or opens up the scent of a flower that shows you that you always were in union with your Father, and the truth is plainly there as what you are. So lay down your dreams, you holy Son of God, and rising up as God created you, dispense with idols and remember Him. Remember God, right? Remember who you are, how you are created by Him. And prayer will sustain you now and bless you as you lift your heart to Him in rising song that reaches higher and then higher still until both high and low have disappeared. High and low have disappeared. Left and right have disappeared. Before and behind have disappeared. Above and below have disappeared. And faith in your goal will grow and hold you up as you ascend the shining stairway to the lawns of heaven and the gate of peace. Beautifully expressed. For this is prayer, and here salvation is. This is the way. It is God's gift to you. So we are absolutely open-minded and welcoming His gifts. This is the reason we are here and sharing that. This is the reason that anybody would click on a button and listen to such a session, to such a message given directly from Christ mind, resurrected Christ mind, as a Course in Miracles or as a supplement to the Course in Miracles as this song of prayer. Now, this was the introduction to this little booklet, and now he leads us towards an understanding of true prayer, an understanding that in true prayer you are always in that alignment with the Holy Spirit. You are speaking with the Holy Spirit, literally one voice. Your mind is thinking with Him. And that is the recognition to be part of God's mind. And so the true prayer wants only that and focuses on receiving that goal and receiving that gift of that recognition of truth. And so as we were saying in the beginning, that there are many levels of prayer, and at the end it doesn't matter because everything is in time space part of a learning experience, but everything will arrive at that true prayer, that clarity of recognition for what we truly can pray, and then the mind will simply let go of any other type and form of prayer. And so, as we already said, we want to pray only for the will of God, and being shown that we only want to pray for the strength that represents God's mind and is extended in creation to every mind and is now extending to you and throughout the entire universe. So, here just a few sentences to start out with, which are important because he makes at the beginning immediately clear that we are not really praying for give me this and give me that. No? But he generally says that prayer is a way offered by the Holy Spirit to reach God, right? And so once we are done with praying for meaningless goals within the human condition, within the physical condition and the physical world, we at least have the goal to reach God, right? And even there, we will hear later on um, very uh, important parts to learn, because of course we can even direct it towards God, but make it in the way something very human, and as if God would create a meaningless world or would create a body. And so there's endless learning first, especially in the beginning when we come and we dedicate ourselves to a true communication with Him. So he says further, it isn't merely a question or an entreaty, right? Entreaty means, oh, Father, please, now give me this, give me that. Now, it cannot succeed until you realize that it asks for nothing, right? So this is what we realize in the process. We were just asking for nothing, and we let go of asking for nothing. It is impossible to pray, here he calls it by name, for idols and hope to reach God. True prayer must avoid the pitfall of asking to entreat, right? That asking to entreat, right, is something with vigilance we want and we have to avoid. And so we ask rather to receive what is already given, to accept what is already there. So that needs a deeper experience. What is already given is an experience, a spiritual experience of the light of creation itself. What is really and already there is not something that the eyes can see, but what we think and experience in our minds. It is beyond what is perceived as form association, as something as part of the world, as part of physical reality. So this is what we really ask for, to receive what is already given, what is already there. Okay, I'm gonna go from there further down to just make it a little bit clearer in so if we have it nicely enlisted, but it's still important to see that the form of the answer, if given by God, will suit your need as you see it and as you really need it in the very moment. And he says the real sound, because this is merely an echo of the reply of his voice, of God's voice. But the real sound, the sound is always a song of thanksgiving and of love, because that is in truth the sound extending from the heart. And that is also not really the physical heart. It goes further into the emotional, into the spiritual heart. It is the heart of hearts, he calls it. And so the real sound in the Eastern philosophy, it was called the soundless sound, Om, right? That's the soundless sound. And you can maybe pronounce it and sing it, but it is an echo within the soul, I would call it. And so you cannot then ask for the echo. Yeah, it is the song that is the gift. It is this angel melody, right? And along with it come the overtones, the harmonics, the echoes. But these are secondary. In true prayer, you hear only the song. You hear only the voice of God. Right? Beautiful. And you have sought first the kingdom of heaven, and all else has indeed been given you. That is from the Bible, right? And it has been added unto it, and therefore it is yours. It has been given you. It is yours. And the secret of true prayer is to forget the things you think you need. Isn't that an important indication to arrive at true prayer? It is here described as the secret of true prayer, that we learn and we practice to forget things that we think we need. We just think we would need them. But the moment we look more carefully in what we really need, we know that we only need the love of God. We only need the peace of God. We only need the light of heaven. We only need our own awakening. And everything else is here to be forgotten. So to ask for the specific is much the same as to look on sin and then forgive it. You look on something that isn't there, you make it real, and then you try to apply a solution or a remedy, right? And you start forgiving it, and forget in the meanwhile that it was you who made it real, and by that making it real, you get a result of that in your own mind. And also in the same way in prayer, you overlook your specific needs as you see them and let them go into God's hands. And so we place the future into the hands of God, into his arms. We disappear, we go home. Isn't it beautifully? And that is really how we come to God's answer and start to realize that God's answer is given eternally. It's only for eternity. But still, all little answers are contained in this. So on the way, you will experience little answers too, and they are also contained in this. And prayer is a stepping aside, a letting go, a quiet time of listening and loving. Yeah. So all those qualities that we assume in our transformation of mind. But you see, this is stepping back, a stepping aside, letting the truth come forth. And we let go all of our notions and illusions. And it shouldn't be confused with supplication of any kind, because it is a way of remembering your holiness. As we said before, this entreaty has to go completely, and if it hasn't yet gone, then be completely conscious about it and give it to the Holy Spirit and ask him what you should ask for in truth, and he will show you. So it is to love. You go in prayer, and prayer is an offering, a giving up of yourself to be at one with love, to be at one with love. And there is nothing to ask because there's nothing left to want. That nothingness becomes the altar of God. It disappears. in him. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Well, from there he goes into showing us about giving or offering help in prayer, and those who haven't reached it's still that attainment of that connection with him, of that experience of true prayer, still need probably your help in prayer. But we have to learn that we do not really help anybody by indoctrinating them or keeping them outside ourselves. We are still just helping ourselves, isn't it? And so he says then also, one who has realized the goodness of God prays without fear. One who prays without fear cannot but reach him. So he can therefore also reach his Son, wherever he may be and whatever form he may seem to take. So help is there. Your brother stands next to you. Christ walks you home. Praying to Christ in anyone is true prayer. This is really what the help is. We learn to pray in a true sense by praying to the Christ in our brothers, in our loved ones, in everyone, in every being. Praying to Christ in anyone is true prayer because it is a gift of thanks to his Father. And to ask that Christ be but himself is not an entreaty, it is a song of thanksgiving of what you are. And herein lies the power of prayer. It asks nothing and receives everything. And this prayer can be shared because it receives for everyone. To pray with one who knows that this is true is to be answered, is to be in a celestial union, we could call it, right? So it's an attunement, attuned to one another, attuned with the Holy Spirit, attuned with the mind of God. So for today, I'm going to leave it with that. And you can review that or just listen again to it. You can apply it. And maybe you go to bed every night until we meet again here for this next episode. And we'll just practice that, and start praying to Christ within yourself. And if a brother comes in your mind with whom you think you want to share true prayer, you pray to Christ. And you try to practice this stepping aside, stepping back, letting go all of ideas of needs, of illusions, taking a quiet time in listening and extending love, because it is an offering and a giving of that love to yourself, to ourselves, and so to everyone. We forget all things that we thought that we would need. Does that make sense? Well, good luck. Thank you so much. I love you with all my heart. Blessings from heaven. And here we go with my last signature song. Thank you so much. Wonderful.